recognizes himself for 5 minutes for questioning. Dr. Coleman, in your testimony, you quoted Chair Powell saying that the Federal Reserve is not a climate policymaker. You also said that it is not and never has been the Federal Reserve's policy to discourage banks from offering accounts or services to any class or type of law-abiding business, and this is not part of our work. Mr. Coleman, you, in your testimony, said that the OCC does not and will not tell bankers what customers or legal businesses they may or may not bank. And Ms. Eberly, in your testimony, fortunately, you pointed out that the FDI will not be involved in determining firms or sectors with which financial institutions should do business. These types of credit allocation decisions are responsibilities of financial institutions. What this hearing is going to be about, though, is why members of Congress and market participants and banks and their customers are skeptical because of these assurances. Because Dr. Coleman, when you say this climate scenario analysis exercise that the Fed is undertaking will not have consequences for bank capital or supervisory implications, what we say is not yet, at least not yet. We want to know where this is going. And so to that end, we want to talk, Dr. Gibson, first about what the Fed is doing as part of the NGFS. And let me just start with Mr. Coleman, actually. Mr. Coleman, can you tell me about what the OCC knows about funding at the network of central banks and supervisors for the greening of the financial system, including who funds work on climate analysis? And in your answer, can you specifically address this group called the International Network for Sustainable Financial Policy Insights, Research, and Exchange, or INSPIRE?
Thank you for the question. I am not aware of the funding structure for these organizations. The OCC participates in these organizations along with several other international and domestic regulatory bodies in order for us to share information and learn from them on a variety of emerging risk issues.
Dr. Gibson, can you answer the same question about what the Fed knows about NGFS funding and about the involvement of INSPIRE or the pass-through funding organization Climate Works?
Yeah, I also don't know anything about the funding of the NGFS. We do participate in their meetings and in their working groups.
Well, if there is involvement of Climate Works in funding NGFS, climate models, data scenario analysis, and the like, would the Fed have concern about politics creeping into your climate work, given that the current senior advisor to President Biden for clean energy innovation and implementation had for years been an influential member of the board of Climate Works, which at least in 2021 held more than $430 million in assets to distribute for environmental activist grant making?
So we participate in these international groups in order to learn from our foreign counterparts and participate in the discussions around international standards. But that's the extent of it.
Well, to Mr. Coleman, Ms. Eberly, and to Dr. Gibson, how many meetings have there been between officials and employees of your agencies and the NGFS since January of 2021?
I do not have an answer to the specific number of meetings.
I don't know the number either.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number. We do participate in their meetings.
Well, how many people are you dedicating to traveling to these meetings with NGFS?
I don't think we have anyone dedicated just to the NGFS, and most of the meetings are virtual.
Well, can any of you describe, besides just discussing and listening, what other work are you doing with this international body, NGFS, and where can we find an accounting of that work?
So the NGFS publishes on their website their work plan and all their work products, so I think everyone has access to the work that they're doing.
Are there NGFS workstream papers or models? I guess let me just, in my remaining time, let me just get to the point. Members of Congress and the American people are very concerned about the extraterritorial reach of this opaque, you all can't even answer these questions, this opaque, mysterious international body that apparently is influencing the agencies that are regulating our banks. So not only is there an opacity with what's going on here, We have this international body that is potentially impacting decision-making. And what we're worried about is where this is going. To have an international body influencing regulators to pressure financial institutions, maybe not now, but eventually to force them into credit allocation decisions that are entirely inappropriate.